What is the most painful way you have seen your coworker accomplish something very simple? Story 1, I have a volunteer that seeks me out because I help her with every problem she has that is computer-related. Last week, she said her monitor was out. Again, her monitor was fine. The computer was turned off. She says that isn't it because she turned it on. I asked her how, and she pushes on the big Dell Silver badge that is located on the front of the computer. So it's on. Another time, she handed me a page of music she needed formatted into a program for printing and had a few changes. She shows me what she needs changed, so I asked for the original. She says that the paper is the original. I asked for the file that she typed this, so I didn't have to retype it all. She says that this is the original, and that should be good enough. I try to explain that I want the digital file, and what that is, and why it would be better to have that than to retype it all over again. She says that if I can't do this, then she will find someone else. It shouldn't be that big of a problem. So I asked how she got the original page of music, and she says it was emailed to her. I asked her to forward that email to me. She has never forwarded anything before, so I show her this new feature of email. She is delighted. I am delighted. Everyone was delighted. She is very old and does not trust computers. Each time they give her trouble, the computer is broken again. She sees them as fancy typewriters. I keep waiting for her to retire, but I fear that this volunteer job is one of her only links to seeing people and would rob her of the joy of seeing people. I am her IT. Story 2, I occasionally come back to my desk to see a post-it note left by a team leader from elsewhere in the business. The post-it note says, "See me, please," and is attached to a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper is a print out of a Word document. The Word document contains a screenshot of Outlook. The screenshot of Outlook is showing an email I sent to the team leader. More precisely, it's a screenshot of her reply to my email that she has decided to screenshot, paste, print, hand-deliver from a different floor, and add an explanatory post-it note to me instead of pressing send. The reply reads, "I am not sure what you mean here." The phone rings before I can email the team leader. "Hi. Did you see my note? I am not sure what you meant in your email. What?" Story 3, I organize things at my job. I had someone give me a pile of napkins, ripped corners of paper, business cards, and non-Rolodex attached Rolodex papers, etc., with various contacts on them. They ranged in information from half phone numbers to full business cards. He wanted me to rewrite all that information on colored index cards, and then alphabetically organize them by last name. Some of them didn't have names, just numbers. I put them in Excel and gave it to him on a flash drive. He thought I was some kind of magician, bought me a fruit basket. Story 4, more of a company issue than anything else. But my old company had a really outdated website thing from the mid-90s, and it was overdue for an overhaul. So it took 18 months to get approval for a budget of a few $1,000s to build a new website, and much infighting over why a website should cost thousands of dollars. Keep in mind, this is a mega-million-dollar corporation that was posting multi-million-dollar profits year after year. So they finally get funding. I volunteer to be on the site committee because I actually have some background in web design. We contract with a local firm, and in about 8 weeks, they knocked the assignment out of the park. I mean, we had a fantastic site ready to go at the push of a button, but no, that didn't work. We held a meeting where the shareholders saw the new design with the designers in the room, and immediately they launched into a 2-hour fight over, "I think this button should be red. I think this needs more pop. Can you make our logo sparkle?" One shareholder in his 70s actually asked, "Can you make this integrate with the Google machine?" During the meeting, I locked eyes with the head designer as I was the only person under 30 in the room and gave him my best "I'm so sorry. This is killing me too, look," and he nodded. I think he understood. It ended up taking a total of 3 years and 6 redesigns before we ended up with a site that looked okay, but it was nothing like the original design, and it took dozens of meetings, just as painful as the first, to finish something that we should have just paid for and gone live with immediately. TLDR, company took over 4.5 years to fix a website, and one old guy asked if they could integrate it with the Google machine. Story 5, I spent a summer working on boats. I looked over and my now wife was sanding a hatch on an old wooden boat using a power sander with no sanding disc. She ended up sanding the entire thing with the Velcro that one is supposed to stick to sandpaper. 2. Story 6, I was working one summer for a hockey tournament, calling and booking teams to play in said tournament. One of my coworkers was tasked with making the program with the full rosters of the kids, which is fairly common practice here. So she has emails with lists of all of the kids' names and numbers. Problem is the numbers are not always in numerical order. Some teams are organized alphabetically. So instead of using Word to fix this in a matter of seconds, she chose a much more interesting route. I came into her office to find her on the floor, surrounded by pieces of paper, cutting up the names, and using a glue stick to make them in the proper order. I was totally speechless, just turned and walked out of the room. She was fired about 20 minutes later when someone at Power came in and saw what she was doing. Story 7, we switched our photography database to Flickr several months back. My boss gave the job of uploading the files to a coworker who subsequently uploaded 500 files, one at a time, until I caught her and showed her that the other 2,500 images can be selected at once. Story 8, I had a coworker who I suggested using Google Maps to. So she goes to Bing, types in Google, finds Google and goes there, then she types maps into the Google search. So painful. Story 9, this is the routine I got to live with for almost 3 years. 1. Ask me how to do something which pertains to their job, not mine, but the skills overlap, such as select all, copy, switch program, paste. I show with key functions we were running Mac, so Command A, Command C, etc. 2. I explain verbally that they don't get it. 3. I come over to their computer to show them while they are at the wheel. 4. Ask coworker to come over to my desk and watch over my shoulder while I do it, showing explaining how. 5. Coworker questions me at least 5 times. Why? In a disbelieving tone, I am doing it that way. Explain. 6. Go back to their computer and say, can you come over here and show me again, every day? Story 10, my now fired coworker once tried to count the amount of limbs on a rotating display. There were 8. She was at 23 and counting before we figured out what she was doing. Edit, imagine this, having 8 places to hang something on, keep it rotating, and keep counting. Story 11.1. Write code in Eclipse 2. Copy it to Notepad 3. Save it. 4. Open command prompt. Use full path to javac, which is nested way too deep, without using tab completion to compile the file. 5. Find syntax errors. 6. Try to fix them in Eclipse 7. Go to step 2, and he's my college lecturer. Story 12, this stupid guy called IT one morning to complain that his monitor was all blurry and he needed a new one immediately before he could start work. IT came to his office and took away his old monitor and gave him a nice shiny new monitor. The guy looked at the new monitor and complained that it was also too blurry to use. Oh wait. Rubs eyes. Never mind, it's fine. Disclaimer, I was that stupid, man. It was Monday morning. Story 13, I was remodeling someone's room a couple of years ago and was in the midst of installing the sheetrock with a fellow that had the best of intentions but a questionable degree of experience. We had just worked ourselves to a point where I needed a smaller piece of drywall to cover the gap at the end of the wall. So I asked him to cut a piece off of one of the many that were stacked outside while I finished installing the one that we had just brought in. If you have worked with sheetrock before, this is an exceedingly simple task. Measure the size needed. Use a knife to score the paper at the first measurement and bend the board until it breaks. Cut the paper on the other side, rinse, and repeat for the second measurement. It takes all of 2 minutes for a novice familiar with the process. My good friend disappeared as I continued to screw the current sheet into the wall. I finished up and thought to myself, he must have gone to take a, until I heard the circular saw wind up. I glanced out the window at that moment and saw a huge plume of white dust shoot into the air as the saw dug into the sheet. Thinking back, I was glad to see that he had scrounged up a dust mask in the process of retrieving the saw. Story 14, when I started working at an office, I had this coworker who sat in the cubicle behind me. She was young, but just not very computer literate. One day, she asked me to fill out a service ticket because her computer is broken. I asked her what's wrong with it, and she said it's broken and said to just fill the ticket in a very bitchy voice. I filled the ticket for her, and one of our techs walks over with the meanest looks on his face and presses the power button on her monitor. He then walks away without saying a word to anyone. I was on the phone with a customer, but afterwards I laughed so hard I drooled on myself, and she got pissed. Months later, the tech said she was a repeat offender of the same crime. She had an amazing and huge, so no one gave her about being an artist. Story 15, walked in on my boss taking screenshots by taking photos of his computer screen. It was a film camera. For years he had been taking photographs of his screen, getting them developed, and then scanning them. Story 16, my boss once gave me an Excel spreadsheet that had something like 10,000 contacts on it. Told me he wanted me to scroll through and eliminate duplicates. He came out of his office 15 minutes later, saw me scripting a VB script, asked how many duplicates I had eliminated. I said none, I'm going to get them all in one go. He told me to stop wasting company time fooling around with code and just do it his way, the scroll through and check way. So I bet him 3 paid hours I could have it done in the next 15 minutes. I would spend 3 hours off the clock organizing his contacts, or he would send me home as soon as I was done, and I'd get to stay on the clock the rest of the day. 5 minutes later, I emailed him the file with 7,892 unique contacts and peaced out. Story 17, click a link that opens in a new tab. Close the window instead of the tab. Open browser and repeat. Print out an email and send it via interoffice mail. Then send an email saying I've sent you X. Write down a web address sent in an email, switch to a browser, type the web address in the search box. Story 18, every day, I watch my coworker fire up his computer. He fires up Excel. Next, he opens up Internet Explorer. At the end of the day, he doesn't have anything done. Then he closes Reddit. Story 19, clicking the first part of an Excel spreadsheet, dragging all the way down 2 pages, letting go right before the last row, and having to start over again. Me just click Trilla's supervisor A, and that is why we hired you. Thanks. Story 20, I asked a girl I hired to mop my dining room in my restaurant. I told her to make sure she cleans the mop and changes the water first. I have your standard mop bucket turner combination. I look over, and I see her try to wring out the giant mop by hand in the sink. Story 21, I worked in IT for a company that sold products to various oil companies. At one point, I'd been given a task of updating an Excel sheet that needed some acronyms typed out in full, as these fields were used in a bunch of different places. It turned out that a secretary was already hard at work for months updating the spreadsheet, and only half done. I go in, find and replace all the acronyms in about 1 hour. It turned out she was retyping every cell with the new words. Not once did she ask if there was a faster way to do things. Story 22, at my first job, I had to speak to a procurement guy. He told me to wait while he finished typing up an email. He got to the end of the message and then started typing his email signature, which he copied from print out of another email he kept on his desk. He hunted and pecked out every letter one by one, including the company phone and fax numbers. In his job, he would need to send at least a dozen emails a day. Story 23, I noticed one of my friends was typing up some paperwork, and he kept hitting the caps lock key. I asked him why he kept hitting caps lock, and he gave me a dust stare and said he needed to capitalize the start of every sentence. I asked him why he was not using the shift key, and he gave me a blank stare. I explained what the shift key did. He admitted that he always wondered what its purpose was. Then it dawned on me. I asked him if he typed every paper through his 4 years of college by using the caps lock when a capital letter was necessary. He said he did, and it blew my mind thinking about how much time during his life has been spent hitting caps lock. Story 24, one of my colleagues made a project in Ms. Word, and she numbered the pages manually. Later, she had to add something in, so she renumbered all the pages again. Only the next day did she ask me if there was easier to do it. Story 25, whenever my boss is in another office and wants something from one of our computers in the office I'm in, he always tells me to print and fax it to him. Usually I just ignore that and PDF the darn thing and email it to him. I'm sure a lot of trees will thank me. Story 26, our HR director decided she needed to forward a memo that was a hard copy. She didn't have it electronically, rather than scanning it to herself and typing a little message to go along with it, then using her contact list. She spent several HRS using the scanner to send it one by one, though very shitty interface, to every employee with an email address. Story 27, I was explaining to a new hire where the program she was testing stored its log files, while the folder was open in XP. I mentioned she should probably create a shortcut, because she would need to access that folder frequently. I watch in semi-horror as she copies folder address from address bar, opens Firefox via start menu, program files, etc. Firefox passed folder address into Firefox, toolbar bookmarks it in Firefox. Still not sure what that accomplishes. Story 28, coworker of mine didn't understand that when she turned email alerts back on, after being told to leave them off, that it would overload the mail server for whatever reason. It was sending quite a few per second to a distribution list. I am just sitting there, laughing about the event from the sidelines, working on my own stuff, just watching things unfold. Sure enough, a few hours later, it brings the entire mail server down. Everyone is deleting emails, etc. I show a few people how to set up Outlook rules and just trash the mails automatically, and then I look over at what she's doing, manually deleting a page of emails at a time, 10 or so, in Outlook Web Access. There was 180,000 emails. Story 29, use an iPhone to write down the directions in Notes to a place where the address was available, Costco, from a website that they were checking on that very same phone. Switched apps back and forth about 1 million times versus using maps. Story 30, I stayed in a beautiful place on top of the mountain when volunteering in Tenerife. We were few media students, so first thing to do was time-lapse of the view. I did it, then use QuickTime Player to read image sequence and stick them together. Then exported it as a video. Sticking together some 4,000 photos took literally 5 minutes. Now my female friend had a lot less pictures, under 1,000, so she decided to use Premiere Pro CS3. She placed, resized, and adjusted every single picture. 2 days later, she was still resizing pictures. I never saw the final product. It's probably still not finished before you ask. Yes, I did tell her that QuickTime Player is much faster and easier, but she probably decided that she knows better. Edit last line. Story 31, student intern writing some code. She had to do something that required the use of a random number generator. Whenever she needed a random number, she'd create a new random number generator object every time. But it was never seeded with anything, so it gave the same number every single time. That's essentially it. I've only had that one job, which I landed during my degree, and my coworkers were all fairly competent people. Story 32, using canned air to clear dust, holding the can upside down and spraying the liquid out in 5 to 10-second bursts. By the time I came to investigate what all the noise was, I stood there in amazement at how quickly they went through the entire can. Story 33, my coworker uploads videos once a week for my boss and occasionally makes small changes to the title, description, etc. I discovered that she has been making these minor alterations by deleting, re-uploading, and filling out a new form with the changes. Sometimes I wonder how she got hired in the first place. Story 34, a couple of coworkers, and I had to clear out an old crappy office storage space. 90 of the things being stored that were caked in dust and hadn't been used in 30 years or more. One book I found was from 1948. We could have finished it in about 30 minutes if we had just recycled everything, but my two co-workers agonized over every single item. Oh, are you sure someone might use that? Took us the entire day. Story 35, it will never cease to amaze me the amount of technological incompetence and inefficiency of people in prestigious, or even just respectable mediocre desk jobs. I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant, but I really believe I could do a lot of other people's jobs in a fraction of the effort just by having basic self-taught computer skills and familiarity. Story 36, open word, misspell word, pull out dictionary, search for misspelling of word, fail, leave misspelling, print, give to me to spell check, edit spelling. Story 37, worked at a U.S. government office during college in about 1988. Our job required blank sheets of paper to be used as scratch paper for making notes while processing travel vouchers. We had a small amount to use per day. One day, the worst happened. We ran out of scratch paper. Fortunately, one of my colleagues wanted to help and had an idea. Unfortunately, she had the intellect of a radish. I then watched with jaw dropped as she took one of the remaining blank sheets of scratch paper and walked to the Xerox machine with a big smile on her face. Yep. She proceeded to make copies of that blank sheet of paper with reams of new paper sitting next to the machine to make more scratch paper for the team. And not sure what was worse, her look of pride for having made more scratch paper for the team or the cheers of my team thanking her. I've never been sure how to feel about the award I received that summer for outperforming the other 8 members of our team combined. Story 38, wasn't a coworker, but I was recently told off for manually entering data from people off sheets of paper that were mailed into a spreadsheet that I saved for later use. I was told that I should have written a script so I could scan the pages, and the script would extract the information from the scanned copy, and then write the sheet automatically. Mind you, I didn't have access to a scanner. Story 39, 2 things first. There's a person in our corporate office who will take a screenshot from the database, print it, and fax it to me in order to ask a question. Second, our shop manager asked one day for me to set up a spreadsheet for core returns. I set it up, showed him how to quickly fill in sequential numbers in Excel, then walked away. Every month since then, I've been called to his office to show him how to do it again. Story 40, former supervisor. We had to cover 7 studio tables about 170 by 130 m with a sheet of foam for some craftwoman to pin fabric on the foam. Explained to her that wholesalers sold 2M×2, 10M sheets. She said we should buy at a retailer's packs of 2 sheets, 1M×1, 05M. I said, 2M×2? 10M were standard in the industry, so the 2-sheet packs were just 1 sheet cut in half. Further, it seemed pretty obvious we should get whole sheets since it was silly to cut several pieces for each table. She said she had to think about it. As with most things she did, I did not hear about it for a good 3 months. She calls me late one afternoon and tells me she will probably get sheets from retailer. I tell her it's a bad idea, but she can do as she pleases. She then proceeds to discuss how many sheets she ought to order, and it goes like this. So, I ought to order 11 sheets, me. I'm scraping my brain, try to figure whether it is for real or not. I think not. I think you have to order 14. If you're really bent into getting those tables looking like they're covered with puzzles of foam. No, 11 will be fine because we could cut, etc. Look, we got 7 tables, so last time I looked, 7 by 2 was 14. Yes, but 11, etc. I am really sorry, Jane. But if you really want 7 by 2 to make 11, there's not a whole lot I can do. All I can really say to you right now is that you need 14 pieces for those 7 tables. The little extra space that won't get covered won't matter because they don't really need that space for what they have to do. If we order some extra, they'll cut it for those tables where they'll really need a few extra centimeters. Well, I think 11 is right. That was the apex of my career. The afternoon, I explained to my incredulous supervisor that 7 times 2 is 14, and she maintained 11 would do. To this day, I still can't believe that conversation ever took place. Edit typos. Story 41, I worked with an extremely large 65, 305 pounds, That guy named Carl who kind of had sort of clown haircut. Whenever he tried to write, he grabbed the entire pen and just tried to write with it perpendicular to the paper in the worst handwriting ever. It broke my heart every time I watch him since he was one of the coolest dudes ever. Story 42. No way. This process is absurd. How can anyone live like that? Edit leaving. I don't want to read this anymore. Too painful. Not a coworker, but a lady at a costume shop where I hired an outfit. She had a little book filled with customer details. On every page, she had stapled the notes given as a deposit. I witnessed her trying to remove the staple to return a customer's deposit. She used a staple remover, an easy little tool to use. It resembles snake fangs, which you then insert underneath the staple and to force them open, instead of using it as intended. However, this woman tried to remove the staple from the front, closed part of the staple. I was too fascinated by her struggle to try and correct her technique. She ended up ripping the staple, still closed, through the notebook page and the money, shredding the corners. Story 43. In After Effects. You can zoom in and out with the scroll ball on your mouse. I saw a coworker accidentally zoom way out. My coworker's solution was to quit the program and relaunch Facepalm. Story 44. In 1999, the company I worked for hired a 45Y lady as a secretary. The first task that was assigned to her involved typing some old papers into MS Word. About an hour later, I saw her looking scared at the monitor and asked her what was wrong. She told me the screen is almost full with letters and there's no more space to type. What should I do? It took me a while to explain her that she could scroll the white space where she was typing. After that day, me and the rest of my coworkers took turns saving whatever she was typing into files because none of us felt we were up for the task of explaining her the concept of saving. Story 45. Trying to make a solution in the lab, and the process goes: make up 80 add and solids, dissolve, then fill to 100, stir for 2 minutes. Take 90 out, and in the 10 left, place in this white fluff that dissolves. Then make back to 100, mix for a few minutes, and done. My coworker, a fellow technician with no scientific background, takes out 10 millimeters at a time to get to desired because she thought that related to the 10. You know how long it takes to do that when you're making a 5-3L batch. So glad I wasn't that day. Story 46. I have a few who either Google for everything even when they know the address it's easier, or will open Word in order to navigate to a file, regardless if the file is a document that can be opened by Word. I have another who doesn't trust email as it leaves a paper trail, so she prints everything out and hands it to me. A few weeks ago, she was working on inventory and needed help locating 4 PCs. Rather than writing the serial numbers down on a piece of paper, she printed out the actually inventory form, a full page, and handed it to me. She does this for everything, yet if you walk out of your office, even hit the she'll turn your light off as you're wasting money. Yeah, about those reams of paper. Story 47. I'll try to explain this the best I can in words. We have a pile of packets that each need to be signed. Each packet has a front hard copy with 3 carbons under it. Usually there are between 3 to 5 packets. We keep the first and third sheet and give the other person the second and fourth. Then have the person sign the packets, usually 3 to 5, and then you split them. All you have to do is take every other one and make 2 simple piles, sorting all packets at once. We give them the carbons. Most people that do this job split each packet separately and make multiple piles. They also make the mistake of giving the hard copy pile out. It's really easy. It's the easiest part of the job. People constantly mess up on major things. It's sad. Story 48. I used to do a lot of admin temping. One day, I was sent for 1 day cover an office in an annex shed type thing on a building site. I was just covering as the normal admin girl was on a course or something. One of the guys started showing me a task I needed to complete. Okay, so next I need you copy these numbers from here, some sort of internal software, to this Excel spreadsheet. Then he started saying that he'd leave me for an hour or so while I did that. But as he was talking, I highlighted, copied, pasted. He acted like I had performed magic. Apparently the regular girl had been sitting there for an hour every single day and typing out a column of numbers from one program to another. The girl's course finished early, so she actually ended up coming into the office for a bit before the end of the day. She gave me the evil eye when she found out what happened. Story 49. I'm pleased to say I've exorcised the majority of these habits from my parents, who had never used a computer until I was 12 and became jealous of all my friends' ability to connect to the net and play games and download Game Boy emulators. I used to have to sit co-pilot and help my father browse the web whenever he wanted something. As years passed, he got a lot better at it, but occasionally does odd things. Even as recently as a few months ago, he called me up worried that he wasn't using his Dropbox properly, the online service that lets you have a 2 GB file store online that auto-upload from a specific folder. I signed them up because they had a close call with data loss, and I wanted insurance against it and wanted to make sure this document was saved properly, but he didn't know how to save it there. I told him, save as, click Dropbox in the little favorite folders area on the top left, and press save. Had done it a million times before, but because this was a new thing, he had to make sure he was doing it right. Bless him, Mom is less adventurous in her computing use, but has almost no bad habits whatsoever. She mostly just shops or reads recipes, though I think online news is becoming a bit of a thing with her. She'd probably like Reddit, actually, but I'd have to make sure she never found her way into any of the, more colorful subreddits. My sister doesn't know how to copy-paste. She picked up the rollerball mouse and slammed it repeatedly onto the desk, trying to get to work. She didn't know how to use a rollerball. Next time she came over, she did it again. My ex-husband couldn't read a map, so I was the navigator whenever we went somewhere. I learned fairly early on that if I told him the most efficient way to get somewhere, he'd find a way to take longer, or he'd just drive on by the destination, saying, no, it's further up the road. So I'd tell him the right way, then I'd mark out a circuitous route, and say I thought it would be better to go that way. He'd go the best way every time I did that. Living like that was too stressful, though, and glad we divorced. My wonderful husband is an absolute dear, but he can do the simplest things in the most complicated way imaginable. I needed a simple planner for my clematis, basically a square made of 2x4s set around the root system of the plant, nothing fancy, and I could have done it myself, but I have bad knees, and as the plant was already in the ground, it needed to be built around the plant. My honey likes to get his tools out and go all manly on, so it works out. 3 weeks after I've asked him to do this thing, he gets a whole pile of wire stakes, 2x4s, and a skill saw, and heads out the door. I followed curious and asked him what he was planning to do. He explained some strange idea that had never entered my mind about some sort of apparatus to hold the clematis up off the ground and away from the fence. Then he got all but hurt over whatever incredulous look was on my face and asked me what I wanted him to do. I put the 4 little pieces of 2x4 around the base and asked him if he would screw them together for me. Please. I think he was irritated at me foiling his plot to take over the world, but I made him a sandwich, so it turned out okay. Story 50 not coworker, flatmate. During the royal wedding, she sat with her digital camera, taking photos of the television, then uploaded them to Facebook. Even after I told her I have access to the Reuters Pictures feed and can just get her high-res ones if she really wants them. Story 51, I had a boss who was in the digital marketing field, mind you, who would scroll down a page using the down arrow on the scroll bar. She didn't even hold it down or anything, just click, click, click every second. She would also make me print hard copies of everything, whether it was an email or a database or whatever, so she could edit or proofread it. She would make the changes in pencil that I had to then change digitally and reprint, so she could see I'd done it right. Story 52, my wife made it all the way through high school, her BS and her MS loading mechanical pencils only from the front. I blew her mind when I showed her the eraser comes off, and you can refill from the back. Story 53, I worked in facilities management once. One job a coworker had was to sort completed work orders by type into Excel and then refile them. The person looked at each one for about a minute determining what it was. If they weren't sure, they'd get an opinion from the housing inspector. Then they'd get an opinion from the foreman. They would then get an opinion from the supervisor. Even after this, they'd double-check with both secretaries before making a decision. When I was assigned the task, because the other guy took so long, the only time I needed to ask the others was an occasional, are they serious? There was one that featured a car having crashed into the perimeter wall of someone's house. Story 54, I work in IT for a large organization with many different departments. The company hired some computer education company to come in and teach MS Office 2010. I was told I needed to attend all of them so that we could keep our IT skills up to snuff. I end up in an Excel class with the finance people. Due to finance's amazement with my super Excel skills, I knew how to sort and use Excel help. I now spend at least 4 hours a week helping them use Excel. Story 55, my boss who gives a running commentary out loud. When he uses his computer, start program files, no wait, my documents, all the time I can see the file he needs on his desktop. Makes me want to stab him in the neck every time. Also, the amount of times he sends an email with the alleged attachment. So far, he's managed to send the right file 3 times out of the last 58 emails. Yes, I keep count. I hate him that much. Story 56, my supervisor needed to convert a list of about 500 emails separated by commas into a list separated by semicolons. She called me after about 15 minutes and said she didn't have time to finish converting the list and wanted me to spend my afternoon fixing it. Turns out she was replacing each comma by hand. I walked back to her computer, did a quick Control F, replaced all the commas with semicolons, and went back to my workstation without saying a word. Story 57, switch date. Day case 1 date. Day of month 1 break case 2 date. Day of month 2 break case 3 date. Day of month 3 break case 4 date. Day of month 4 break case 5 date. Day of month 5 break case 6 date. Day of month 6 break case 7 date. Day of month 7 break case 8 date. Day of month 8 break case 9 date. Day of month 9 break case 10 date. Day of month 10 break case 11 date. Day of month 11 break case 12 date. Day of month 12 break case 13 date. Day of month 13 break case 14 date. Day of month 14 break case 15 date. Day of month 15 break case 16 date. Day of month 16 break case 17 date. Day of month 17 break case 18 date. Day of month 18 break case 19 date. Day of month 19 break case 20 date. Day of month 20 break case 21 date. Day of month 21 break case 22 date. Day of month 22 break case 23 date. Day of month 23 break case 24 date. Day of month 24 break case 25 date. Day of month 25 break case 26 date. Day of month 26 break case 27 date. Day of month 27 break case 28 date. Day of month 28 break case 29 date. Day of month 29 break case 30 date. Day of month 30 break case 31 date. Day of month 31 break default. Don't know what to do here, break.